Bayshore mud, a good place to find worms belonging to the phylum Annelid. Annelid means ringed or segmented, a characteristic that separates these worms from worms belonging to other animal phyla. Inside, the body also shows these divisions, with the intestine and main blood vessels passing through the segments. Most segmented worms found in mudflats and other marine environments are members of a major evolutionary branch of annelids, the class Polychaeta. The name means many bristles. The bristles, or setae, project from side flaps called parapods. The parapods also provide attachment for the finger-like gills. Parapods have a variety of different shapes, adaptations for different lifestyles and habitats. Species living in rocky environments use them for walking. In burrowing species, they may function as digging paddles. But mud can be a difficult environment to live in because of the way it compresses around objects. In some worms, the parapods are short and combine with peristaltic contractions to move the worm through the mud. In others, the parapods retract, streamlining the body for passage through the sandy mud substrate. Some worms use an even more direct approach, creating a burrow with their mouth parts. If dislodged, an energetic wiggle will usually rebury the worm. Another difficulty with living in mudflats is lack of oxygen. The mud is rich in organic material resulting from dying organisms and bird droppings. As vast populations of bacteria break down this organic material, they create an environment so low in oxygen that few kinds of animals can survive. Mud-dwelling polychaetes have a solution for living in this stagnant world. Blood cells that contain hemoglobin, the same red oxygen-hungry molecule found in our own blood. The oxygen is transported around the body by the worm's circulatory system. Although the bacteria-rich detritus robs oxygen, it's an excellent food source. Microscopic animal life adds protein to this nutritious mixture. Hairy gilled worms use cilialine tentacles to transport food particles to the mouth. Extending above the surface, bright red gills harvest the sparse oxygen supply. Other polychaetes eat the mud directly. This lugworm digests the organic contents and deposits the processed mud at the surface, just like earthworms. Converting bacteria and organic material into protein, polychaetes become an important food source for the Bayshore's larger inhabitants. Our rocky coast is a different kind of world. Here, both oxygen and food are plentiful, a great place to live, provided one can hang on. One kind of adaptation for dealing with crashing waves is to live in a tube cemented to the rock. These worms extend feathery filters to capture drifting food particles. One tentacle has become modified to form a plug. In protected waters, clusters of tube worms cling to wharf pilots. Their feather-like feeding tentacles are effective strainers adapted for trapping microscopic animals and drifting detritus. A feather duster worm can withdraw into its leathery tube at the slightest sign of danger. This worm feeds by coordinating the fine branches of its feathery tentacles. Polychaetes with similar lifestyles live on coral reefs. Their tubes overgrown by the corals. One group of polychaetes is distinguished by a pair of scales on each body segment, the scale worms. Many scale worm species live as commensals, guests of other animals. This one lives in the mantle cavity of a limpet. Others live on the surfaces of sea stars. Strange as they are, scale worms are obviously annelids, but the sea mouse, an offshore bottom dweller, might easily go unrecognized as an annelid until you turn one over. Polychaetes broadcast their gametes directly into the sea, where the fertilized eggs develop into ciliated larvae called trochophores. Living in the plankton, the trochophores metamorphose into worms that will eventually settle down to become adults. The palola worm, an inhabitant of tropical seas, takes egg production to extremes. Once a year, timed to the November full moon, chains of gamete-filled segments break away from their head sections buried in the sand and swarm towards the surface. The long spiraling chains are filled with eggs. Smaller sperm-filled segments break from the males. What happens next may result from the worms mistaking the dive lights for the moon. The reproductive segments explode, dispersing millions of eggs and sperm into the water. Fossils of ancient marine polychaetes indicate that this group has been around for at least 500 million years. Around that same time, some primitive annelids were trying out their mud-dwelling lifestyles in freshwater. It was the beginning of a major split on the annelid tree, and it produced the group that includes earthworms and several thousand species of freshwater annelids, class Oligochaeta. Look for freshwater oligochaetes in drops of pond water. This one has a finger-like proboscis and long setae. But what is that proboscis used for? A brief encounter with a predatory oligochaete gives a clue. The proboscis may be an early warning system. The worm feeds on the accumulation of organic material that settles into everything in the pond. The digesting food is pushed along by peristalsis. 20 minutes later, it reaches the end. Here, a body segment is developing a new head and will soon break free, a form of asexual reproduction found in many oligochaetes. Oligochaete mouths are specialized in various ways. This one uses cilia to sweep food items into its mouth. This predatory oligochaete feeds by gulping. As the water fleas move through its digestive system, glands pour in digestive enzymes. The digested nutrients pass through the intestine into the worm's clear blood. Gas exchange, oxygen in and carbon dioxide out, is accomplished directly through the worm's surface. Worms living in stagnant environments have adaptations that improve oxygen uptake. Gills increase surface area for gas exchange. Cilia improve circulation over the gill surface. Hemoglobin in the blood binds the few oxygen molecules available. Red-blooded tubifex worms thrive in low-oxygen environments, waving their tails for improved circulation, while their heads probe the bottom muck, searching for food. It's a short crawl from living in pond mud to living in moist earth. Earthworms made that step and have become the annelid we know best. Earthworms mix and aerate garden soil, eat our garbage, and make great fish bait, although the worm often succeeds in using its seed to resist efforts to pull it from its burrow. A small living earthworm, lightly pressed between glass slides, shows details of the worm's digestive and circulatory systems. From its mouth, the meal travels through an esophagus surrounded by the hearts to a storage sac, and then to a muscular gizzard, where the meal is mixed before passing to the intestine. Undigested material is pushed out the anus in the form of worm castings, those familiar piles seen in lawns and gardens. A pulsating dorsal blood vessel carries blood to the 5 pairs of pumping hearts. A non-contractile ventral blood vessel, opposite the dorsal blood vessel, returns blood to the body. Connecting these 2 major blood vessels are networks of capillaries that carry blood through the moist skin, where oxygen is picked up and carbon dioxide removed. Excretory organs that remove urea and other metabolic wastes can be seen in each body segment. The yellow bodies are fat, energy stored for later use. Earthworms are hermaphroditic. During mating, the male parts of one transfer sperm to the female parts of the other. The eggs are shed in a cocoon, from which the baby earthworms escape to take up their independent lives. Although some are bloodsuckers, most leech species are harmless scavengers. They have a sucker at each end and move by extending and reattaching. Like earthworms, leeches are hermaphroditic. In this species, the young develop in their parents' brood pouch. Three branches of segmented worms have evolved since annelids first appeared over 500 million years ago. Polychaetes, with thousands of species named so far. Oligochaetes, a class made up almost entirely of freshwater and terrestrial animals, and leeches. Together, they are the annelids, one of the most successful groups of invertebrate animals.